Impatience is killing your business growth. Wanting everything yesterday, I totally get it. But the average business in the UK grows by as little as 10% per year. I believe, especially as a small business, that you have the opportunity to eclipse that with 20, 30, even 40% growth if you follow the simple steps that I'm going to lay out for you in this video. So I've been in business since 2006, and my first 10 years of business were just hustle and bustle and grind. And since 2016, starting all over again, I've had a simple mindset, and that is that I want to build a business that gives me the time to do the things that I want with who I want. But if you're just starting out, you have to go through that initial phases of sacrifice, as I spoke to you only a couple of weeks ago. The more energy and effort and time you dedicate in your early phase of business, the more you will reap the time rewards later. So it's really important to focus on 12-hour days, 6-day weeks, maybe even 7-day weeks, minimize your holidays, have some sacrifice so you can lay a solid foundation for your business growth in the future. Starting out is way harder than you realize. Most businesses don't make it past 5 years, and that's because they leave with an employee mindset and think that they're going to go self-employed and have more time. You don't when you're first starting out. So as I look back on my journey since 2016, saw all the wrongs that I made between 2006 and 2016, I want to share with you simple steps to build a business, income, and lifestyle that you love. So first of all, I want you to focus on a profit and a turnover goal. If you know your numbers based on something like Xero or QuickBooks, what your turnover is, what your cost of goods sold are, what your expenses are, what your profit is, then set a line in the sand that this year we're going to grow by 20%. And I think 20% growth in most businesses, particularly when you're smaller, is achievable. Now, if you're investing in team, as I spoke to you about last week, you might find that your profit initially dips because you have to invest in that person. But as you start to see the benefits of them taking over that role, you increase your revenue, you convert more, you generate more inquiries, you simplify your administration, your revenue will go up and your profit will begin to grow. So particularly if you're in financial services, the lag between applications submitted and banked income might mean that your business, your revenue grows by 20% 1 year, but your profit doesn't because it's taking 60, 90, 180 days to see that money hit your bank. But the first thing to do is to say, well, how much do I want my business to grow this year? And then reverse engineer the numbers to be able to achieve that. And when you reverse engineer the numbers, just simply look, what's your turnover? Divide that by the number of main products that you are selling. In my brokerage, that would be mortgages because that's the core product. And then we offer the solicitor, the life insurance, the critical illness, the income protection, the home insurance, etc. off of the back of that. But that will give me a rough average deal. You can go really granular with this, but you don't need to. And then if you do 100 deals a year, really simply, if you want to grow by 20%, you want to do 120 that next year. And then you can reverse engineer those numbers into the appointments and the leads that you need. If your challenge is worrying about where your next lead is coming from, maybe you're not doing any form of marketing, you're solely relying on referrals and recommendations. If you don't understand anything at all about social media or marketing, then I have just the thing for you. I wrote an Amazon best-selling book called The Lead Generation Guide. It's sold over 1,000 copies, and these principles have generated me in excess of £5 million in revenue, and that continues to compound. These principles are clarity, content, social media, marketing techniques, and sales. No matter what industry or business you are in, it will 100% help you to attract your ideal client and increase your sales to make your business life and journey much easier. If you go on Amazon right now, it's $12.99. But if you go to theleadgenerationguide.co.uk or click the link in the description or show notes, I'm gifting you a free copy. You enter your details, you pay £4, which is purely for the postage, and my team will get it posted straight to you. I'd love for you to solve your lead generation problems so you can increase your sales and build a business you truly love. Go and grab a copy right now. The second thing is identifying what is the milestone that you are working towards. And I don't think enough people do this. In my brokerage, when I started again in 2016, my simple goal was to stop advising. And every decision that I made, every number that I measure, monitor, and managed was all about, is this stopping me from being the main earner in my business, the main income driver? And is it freeing me up to go from £10 to £100 tasks? And I achieved that goal in 2019 when I started to bring more team on. Once I had sat down and looked at the business and thought, right, I've achieved that goal. What do I want to do next? Well, through the course of the pandemic and by the end of 2020, I wanted to make the business run without me. So in order to do that, I needed someone to look after my advisors. I needed someone to look after the day-to-day operations. I wanted someone to make sure that the leads were being managed and converted. And in early 2021, I was able to make my business run without me, probably doing 1 or 2 meetings per week. But fundamentally, the leads were converted, the sales were made, the applications were submitted, the compliance was taken care of, and I didn't have a handle on any of that. Now, after my mum died in 2022, I sat down and looked at the business at the end of the year, and having lost a couple of good self-employed advisors who moved from self-employed under me to build their own businesses as ARs, I sat there and thought, this business model's ruined. Because if all my self-employed guys left, I don't have a business. In 2023, my goal was to cover the expenses of the business, the full running costs, with an employed team, so that if the self-employed guys left, my income was still secure, the clients were still looked after, and everything still functioned and worked. I brought on Zoe as client services and then Jamie as an advisor and set about bringing all the leads back into a Chelmsford head office, looked after by those two. In 2023, I then looked at implementing Active CRM for our sales and our marketing and Acre for all of our back-end compliance. And we got the business working hyper efficient, way better. And by halfway through 2024, after investing roughly a year of more time into the business, it was back to a point where the revenue and profit was taking care of the running costs and the business was beginning to work. And I really only need to spend 1 hour per week on that business. So again, you go through ebbs and flows. But the key thing is now, having made the business run without me, but also made it run without me with an employed team, meaning that the clients and the income is safe and secure, my next goal is to make it grow without me. So I know my numbers in order to be able to work that growth. What do we need? Well, we need more leads, we need more appointments, we need more sales. We're going to then need more team to be able to service those. We're going to need a manager to make sure that everything is looked after. And that is incremental, slow and steady growth. And I want you to focus on knowing what your next milestone is. Who do you need to bring in that's going to help add that next layer of growth? You go through an upward hill battle, you get to that point, you plateau for a little while, you get it all profitable again, you get it all working, and then you go for the next uphill, almost like climbing steps of a staircase. And every single one of those steps is your 20% growth year on year. Here's the crazy thing though. In 2022, my business was less profitable with a bigger team than it is now in 2025 with an employed team and less people on the team. We do less turnover, but we make more profit. So it's really important to focus on a model that works. So if you know your numbers and if you work out what your key next milestone is, the biggest thing that you can do is focus on moving towards your own personal goals. Because if every decision aligns to that, then it's going to make it easier for your team to be aligned to what that next layer of growth looks like. And it will also begin to free you up to do more good in both your personal life and in your business. The third thing, if you hadn't seen this already, is to not be afraid of change. Teams will be afraid of change. Most employees will be afraid of change. They will want to see consistency and predictability in what's going on. No one likes changing systems. No one likes changing offices. No one likes moving to doing different things on a day-to-day basis unless it is growth and elevation and it's pre-planned and prepared. But take my training business, for example. In 2019, we set out just to teach people some things about social media that were working for me over the last 3 years. My industry was asking me for a hell of a lot of help. How do you generate leads? How do you leverage social media? And I just started an online membership for like £99 a month. It was always a side hustle because I was focused on my brokerage. We went through the pandemic and we did everything on Zoom. I had 3 different tiers. We had the low cost membership, we had group masterminds, and then I did some one-to-one coaching on top of that. But as we got to the end of the pandemic, I wanted to move everything into a room. And we moved from being solely online to solely in person every single month. You know, I rebranded the name, I changed, I pivoted, I did different things, focused on where my brain was at that point in time. I didn't really have a bigger picture for where I wanted to take the brand and the business. And whilst the business was profitable, it was a side hustle and it was fun, I was very much spinning plates. And that's because I wasn't focusing on the first two things that I just told you. I was constantly pivoting and changing and switching things up, but it wasn't directional. It wasn't focused. So in 2022, in order to improve client results, that was the one outcome that I always wanted to focus on, to get more people to engage and do the work and implement. That's why we moved it to in-person, because I thought that closer relationship would have a bigger impact. We did 2 years of in-person and it was awesome. You know, we had a real solid group. I worked out a whole structure for the year. I brought in guest experts, but we taught too much. We didn't focus enough on the implementation and the doing. And I saw those challenges in early 2024. And I wanted to start revamping the model. And I kind of started doing that in around about July, because what I really focused on was actually this consulting, this coaching, this marketing support, this business growth consultancy was where I really see my future, particularly now with Active CRM being such a game changer for businesses in systemizing and automating. I wanted to center everything around that. We went through that phase of the masterminds coming to an end in around about September. Some clients stayed on until the end of the year. We ran it as a smaller group, and then I rebranded and relaunched everything from the 1st of January. Now, consistently this year, we've onboarded 5 new clients every single month. We're capped at 5 because it means we can surprise and delight every new client and give them the love and care and attention that they need in the first 90 days to change their behaviors, change their habits. And we made it a solid business. You know, I've now got a team of 5 in that business. And the whole goal is helping people to grow their businesses, particularly mortgage advisors and especially financial advisors now, to simplify that growth, to achieve 20% year on year, to double revenue and double freedom. But patience is one of the things that you need to have. And you have to be willing in your early phase of business. Think about 2019 was when it began as a side hustle for me in the training business. My first 10 years were 2 years from 2006 till 2009 doing mortgages, and then from 2009 till 2015 doing insurance, and then 2015 and beyond back to mortgages again. So your business will evolve, it will change and transform, and it must pivot and ebb and flow with the requirements of the industry, the market, your clients. But one of the most foundational things that I have learned is if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. Often in our phases as an entrepreneur or business owner, and depending on your energy type, you will try and pivot and change things. But sometimes if it's working, just leave it alone. Let it do its thing. So what have we now been doing since the beginning of this year, particularly in the training side and particularly in the mortgage brokerage, is doing everything that I referenced. Knowing the numbers and focusing on our incremental growth and what that next milestone is. We know that if we continue to onboard 5 clients every single month and we continue to delight our clients and they keep staying with us for the longer term, then we're going to have a really good flourishing business. What do I want to do? Well, I want to bring in some marketing support. I want to bring in some done for you services. We're working with some brokerages that are over £1 million a year in turnover to simplify their systems and help them improve their marketing. And the future is looking awesome in terms of helping more advisors to become better business owners so that you can live a life you truly love. Change is the only constant in business. So with things like AI, with new systems, with AI agents that are basically taking over an employee's role and job because you can train them on a specific task until it's completed, with AI call answering, the world is going to fundamentally change over the course of the next 12 months and beyond. So you have to adapt, pivot and change before you get left behind. So our goal is to stay ahead of that curve and teach our clients how they can grow quicker than 20% revenue by leveraging everything that we fundamentally have available to us right now. So if you're going through that phase where you've been on the hamster wheel, feel like you're spinning plates, you're not seeing incremental growth year on year, you're not crystal clear on your numbers, your leads and your appointments aren't going up, you're not getting more time to do the things that you want to grow your business, then this is what this channel is all about. And you can feel free to reach out to me for further assistance, help and guidance like we do with all our clients inside Systemised and Scale. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to seeing you next week.